Guys, this is a super clean Equinox. I put a timing chain on it, I don't know, probably 8 months ago, something like that. Maybe a year, but I don't think that much, but it's a very clean, well maintained. It's kind you like seeing, the kind you like working on, but when we put the chain on, we noticed that the exhaust manifold was cracked. Now he's starting to get some fumes in the inside, and you're gonna take care of that. Screaming Equinox. All right, guys, I had this manifold off once before. That's when we seen the cracks whenever we put the water pump kit in it too. And first thing, I can't remember exactly how I got it out of there, but pretty sure it was all from the top. Might have to get under, but we'll see. There's so many in between, I can't remember, specific models anymore. But taking the top off, just there's an 8mm bolt down there on the bottom. You just pop that off of the throttle body, and then I just take it off right here where it goes into the air box. Same thing, 8mm. Then your whole box is just held on by two little push pins. Hard to do one-handed, but there we go. I had to cheat and use too, but that's what it's resting on there. Those go into the rubber grommets on the back of the air cleaner. So once you get that off and that off, just pop the back. Okay, I know this has to come off. And there's various ways you could get to it, but the bolt's under here. It's like a blind bolt. You're not going to be able to see it. This here's the cat's ass for that bolt. It's like a 3-inch extension and 13mm with a flex head. Because you could just wrap it around like this. And then take the bolt off. And then do the same thing on the other side. There's two holding that. And then the exhaust manifold we could get out through the top. All right, there's what you're up against for them two bolts right there. See, it's that's the part you can't see. That's covering up the bolt head. That flex head and extension worked out pretty good. Anything you got like that, though, there's some room underneath. If you don't have that exactly, I mean, it's not going to be that hard. But with a wrench, I wouldn't do it. It's the nice ones I know I worked on because, there's anti-seize wherever they're supposed to be, and the bolts are already. Everything should come off. I could tell my work here with the fingernail polish. There's a collection right there. But he put on there when I did it. I was going to look up how long ago I did it. 89,000 miles. We'll see how many are on it now. It can't be that many. But pretty clean. No leaks coming out of it. That's good. Nice clean throttle body. I mean, he maintains it well. The next thing, there's a 10mm bolt here to get this heat shield off. And I'm going to try to give you a view of the... If you look right here, there's another 10mm. Let me get some light on it. Right down there at the bottom left. There's one there, and then there's another one on the other side. Yeah, you could kind of see them through that wire. But that's just holding this tin on. That's what I'm going to take off next. Okay, we could see a little bit better back there now. Now, I already had this off, so I'm not expecting too many problems to arise. But there's never want to say that, but there's 3 bolts that hold this onto the catalytic converter. We could reach them from the top. I think they're 15mm, but I'll double check. And then we can see you have to do the reach around to get the exhaust manifold bolts. And then it should pop right out of there. Right. But you have to wiggle the cover a little bit to get out of there. But it does come out. And I hit the top of the nuts with WD. You can't see the back bolts on the manifold, so you just got to blindly spray like a tomcat, just everywhere you could hit. Oh, starting to run out of the juice. It'll dribble down there. Okay, guys, every time you go to work behind a manifold like that, a trick I saw on YouTube a while ago I've been using is just in your rubber glove. These are just magnets from Harbor Freight. I think it was like $1.99. I just take 2 of them and I put them in the fingertip. So whenever if you're undoing the bolt, or if you drop a bolt, you could just touch it and pick it up, or a nut rather. I'll show you what I mean in a second. See, guys, for $1.99, they're probably the cheapest, most useful tool in the box. Like if you drop a nut behind here, if you're taking it off the stud, there's just 2 of them in the tip of that glove. Yeah, pretty strong magnets, pretty neat. So that way if you drop one, you can see or touch it, or whenever you're taking it off the stud, it's going to come with you. Yeah, notice I got a towel in there before I started doing this. All right, the bolts that would be on the bottom, that would be these ones. It's hard to get a ratchet under there. If I use this 13 millimeter flex head, that's what I used to get the in-between ones, and I used a ratchet for these. But once you got it loose, it's a pretty straight up shot. Let's see if I get one hand here. Yeah, it's just up and out. And I don't know if you could see it, but there's where the crack is. It's all covered with PB Blaster now, but it was all black still. Puffing out a little bit. I think it was puffing out a little bit around, maybe not, hard to tell. Oh, there maybe. Oh, got a new gasket, got a new manifold. We'll get them on there. But yeah, it's easy. No need to jack it up. I did have to heat one bolt. I got out the MAP gas. One bolt on the catalytic converter. If you have any trouble, just, it's a pretty safe shot. Yeah, his cat was getting a little bit, no cat codes, but I noticed last time whenever I put the timing chain on it, that was, it's starting to, monolith is starting to break down, or catalyst, whatever you want to call it. See, guys, this is what happens to them. See how there's no gap at all in that hole. It's not even round anymore. Hard to get an image of it there. But look at the spacing in between each one. Just kind of as the head warps and exhaust manifold warps, you could see the difference in the gaps. This one has more in between it, and this one's crushed. Then this one had a crack on the top, and then there's a crack on the bottom. So it's a pretty common failure on them, but it's luckily it's not that big of a job. All right, guys, this one share a little tip. Like a lot of these, when you get the new exhaust gasket, the original one's a lot thicker of a gasket. But this one's been on and off twice. But this one's a thinner one. I just use a little bit of ultra copper. I just put it on my finger and I'll smear it around just the port. Not a lot. You just want to, you don't want to bead around there. You just want to smear it a little bit. Then put it on just this side that goes up against the head. Then I'll put a little bit around the ports or the new intake. That way you don't have, a mess. RTV on both sides of the gasket. You're just putting one side on, then putting a little bit on this side, then push that in. Same with this gasket. It's a little bit beat up. That's the new one, the one that came with it. And you could see, that one's not even sitting flat, so this is going to definitely be your friend. And even around here, that's what I'll put it around, that little donut gasket. It goes in that groove right there in the top of the catalytic converter. And then on them studs, you're going to put copper NECs. Same with the studs on the head. the manifold bolts. That way, if you ever have to get them off again, and what I usually do is let them get hot and then snug them up again. So it's, if you ever have to just tighten them in the future, you know, it's, they will tighten, they won't just break off on you. See, just a little bit, just smeared around the ports. And that way it's made a cheap gasket a little bit better. A lot better, actually. You guys, there's just a quick look down there. I have the donut in there with a little bit of the ultra copper RTV, and then on the studs themselves I put copper anti-seize. That'll lubricate the nuts going back on, also let me get enough torque on them. Same thing on the manifold now. You see how very thin, just barely a smearing on there, because we're not actually gluing this like to keep oil out like a timing chain cover. This is just filling any imperfections in the gasket and around the ports. Then it's, you know, just going to give us a better seal, better peace of mind. See, one thing, guys, about the new manifold on this one, you see that solid iron. On the new one, there's a plug that goes in there. It's an 8mm. Well, it depends on what brand you get. This happened to be an 8mm hex head. I put some sealant on it and tightened it down. What's kind of good about that, though, in the future, if you ever think you have a restricted exhaust like a plug cat, take that plug out, and if it runs better, then yeah, you definitely have a restriction. So it's it's an aftermarket part that there might have been an O2 sensor that went in that hole, but you could just take that plug out, and if it runs better, then you know your catalytic converter's plugged. All right, guys, installation, I mean, it went right in. I just put every bolt in loose on the manifold and going into the cat, and then tightened them up slowly and tightened the manifold good, then tightened the cat. But what I always do is I ran it for about 5 minutes, shut it back off, let it cool down a little bit, and then retighten the bolts. Hard to get a torque wrench back there. I mean, if you want to try, go ahead, but I just give them the double tighten, do it again after it's hot, let it warm up, and then tighten them again. You get almost a good another turn on them, so that's the important part there, not having these come back on you or having to do this job twice. This is about a 3-inch extension and a 13mm. This worked great on it would be the upper bolts, the ones on towards the top of the head. 15mm and a 1/2-inch drive worked great for the catalytic converter, the 3 bolts, and this worked for the lower bolts. It seemed like this would, would be, but this worked for the lower bolts because the lower bolts, you're in between. This is where the ratchet did good, but the ratchet's hard to get here. You could get a longer extension, but there's not a lot of room back there. The flex head 13mm did the trick on every one of them. But all right, guys, that's don't forget to put your heat shield back on. Those are the 10mm bolts, and I'm going to fix his catch can there. He got a little blowout. Let's see if I have something a little bit heat and oil resistant. And the trick to the covers, guys, it's the same as what's getting the manifold in. Go for like right where the gas and the brake pedal are. Push one end in down there. And then once you got it in there, turn it around. So otherwise you'll be banging your head off the wall for a little bit. And then this side, just got to clear the hose. There we go. And don't forget to put a little anti-seize on these. I put those on there a while ago, and you could still see the white around it from the anti-seize. It lets all 3 of them bolts come out, because if you do get these out, there's no reason to put them in there dry and then have them break off on you next time. I like the bolts come out, put them back in, give them a little help with the anti-seize. All right, guys, your last step, make sure you put the air box or the air tube that goes to the throttle body and over to the MAF sensor. Got to plug that back in. If you do run it to get it hot, I didn't put the air cleaner back on. It'll stall if you don't unplug the MAF sensor. So you might have an engine light. Usually this will fix itself. You might have to shut it off or disconnect the battery. But if you just started to run it to get the manifold hot naturally, you don't want to put all this back on. But with the MAF sensor, it's going to stall. But if you just unplug it, it'll stay running long enough to get it good and hot. All right, that's the last little bit. I mean, it's nice doing this on a job that I did the chain on. It was 89,000 miles. I'll see how many's on it now. But, you know, still had the torch one, even though I put Loctite all on these, you know, a couple thousand miles ago. But, you know, it's still nice, you know, you're not getting into the unknown. See, the chain, you take off the front, you have to take all this off, jack up the engine, take off the mount. But the weird thing was, now I remember, now that I just put this exhaust manifold back on, I didn't even remember why I had the manifold off. But we put the water pump in too. The water pump sprocket's on this side of the timing, and the water pump bolts from the back there. So there's a rigid water tube that comes the whole way to the front to the thermostat housing. So you have to go this way for the water pump and this way for the timing chain. So it was like two separate, you know, procedures. But the words of encouragement is, I didn't even remember this until that. You forget what they are. I mean, they're all the same. I mean, you forget which ones give you trouble. You forget which ones are easy. I got Dan's Honda Accord of 2013 out in the parking lot. I just ordered a chain for. And 2.4s, you remember them, are very easy to put a chain on. You remember some of the easy ones, but it doesn't matter what you're doing. I mean, you just do a good job. You follow it through to the end, and you don't take no shortcuts, guys. You do things right, and this is the way they came running back to you. A couple thousand miles later, we're going to see how many. Maybe he didn't even drive us since I put a chain in it, but we're going to see. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Adios. All right, guys. We'll say goodbye to Ray's Equinox. Let me show you that. Pretty clean. 1,000 says, would it say 89 on it? So 6,000 on the chain so far. Running pretty good.